It's slightly less Super Tuesday. Biden and Bernie facing off in a half a dozen states. We'll break down the politics of it. Plus, Bernie Sanders says that the Soviet Union wasn't really socialism. And the latest from the Trump administration trying to get a handle on coronavirus, trying to make sure there are the fewest possible cases. We got that and more coming up on the Buck Sexton Show. Welcome to the Buck Sexton Show, everybody. It's a new day, and I think that's certainly a good thing. Yesterday was a tough one, no question about it. Markets were tanking. Everybody was on edge. Just as a form of psychological torture, I kept checking in to see whatever investments that I have. And it was, for me, a way of training myself. This is not when you sell. This is not when you empty out your 401k, which you should never do until you're really ready to retire. Everybody was concerned yesterday about the market, and everybody was concerned about the possibility of America facing what Italy now faces with the lockdown of the whole country because of coronavirus. I wanted to flip the script if I can today. We'll talk about the latest with coronavirus. I feel like there's such saturation of that coverage. Everything that we are hearing all the time is about whether this is going to be so bad or not, what it's going to do to the economy or not. It's a lot of speculation, including from armchair epidemiologists and all of a sudden social science experts, as well as medical science experts, who are finding themselves tribalized in their positions on this. It's either going to be so terrible it's as bad as the Spanish flu, or it's going to be not much of a big deal at all in this country. It already is a big deal elsewhere in the world. The answer, my friends, is we don't know yet. We take the precautions we can. We do the most we can to make sure that we're in the best possible position to prevent this from becoming a lot worse than the few dozen deaths and the 700 or so cases we've seen yet in this country. But should there be targeted financial bailouts, let's call them what they are, for different industries? What should the Trump administration doing? What does this tell us about Fed policy? I will work into all of that and perhaps a bit more on the Russia versus Saudi oil situation later on in the show. I wanted to give us a little respite at the top here from just coronavirus speculation, which is what everyone's engaged in right now. I want what's best for the country. I want the most people in America, and quite honestly around the world too, but the most people I focus on in America to be healthy and fine and get past this. And I want prosperity and security and all those things. And I know right now that might sound like I'm in some kind of a Miss America contest and I'm answering the question that should be answered with world peace. But I really do want what's best for the country, even more than want what's best for the Trump administration's reelection and 4 more years and all of that. I mean, I want that. I'm not pretending I don't, but I just want what's best for America. And I really wish that there could be we could put aside, put the knives away for a second in politics. Just stop going after each other until we really know what we're dealing with here. There's plenty of time. And this is what I was trying to get to in the Bill Maher show. I was like, Trump is terrible and Trump lies. I got caught in this maelstrom of idiocy. But what I was trying to say is there's not going to be any shortage of time to do assessments, what worked, what didn't, who was on top of this, who predicted it correctly, who didn't. You're not going to be able to hide from it. All right, we're going to have confirmed cases, and yes, there's going to be a body count. We're all going to know. So can we focus on making this thing better? I have spent already more time in this hour than I meant to on this topic. We'll get to it later on. I did want to focus a bit on the politics of the day because we're going to find out whether or not the Democratic Party, and when I say find out, okay, it's not definitive. But we will likely know after today whether the Democratic Party has rejected the socialist candidate in their primary. Or rejected might be too strong a term because there's still a lot of people that want the Bern. They're feeling the Bern, baby. They think that it's a good thing. They want Bernie Sanders. A lot of people out there that are hoping for this. But did the Democrats walk up to the precipice of collectivism, outright socialism, instead of the incremental socialism that Joe Biden represents? They want more state control, more state involvement, more redistribution. at the hands of the state using force, implied force, but ultimately force. They want that in the Democratic Party. That is central to their ethos. But Sanders is just like, why the pretense, guys? Let's just do this. Let's just go for it. So you have, on the one hand, their desire for anything other than Trump, as evidenced here by Nancy Pelosi, whose talking points about this president bear no resemblance to reality as a normal person would see it. But here's Nancy Pelosi claiming that the country simply cannot handle 2 more years of Trump. Play clip 2, producer Mark.
Our country is a great country. Great country, and we'll go into some of its greatness more if you wish. It can withstand 1 term of the current occupant of the White House. It cannot withstand 2. No, I don't think the damage is permanent. That's why we have to win this election.
Yes, it's existential for the country. We can survive 1 term of Trump. I don't know if we can survive 2. Gosh, all the peace and prosperity and lack of focus on nonsense that we shouldn't even care about, like the Green New Deal, and how will we ever live? See, the problem that Democrats have had all along with the coronavirus response and their responses to it is that they can't help but view this through the lens of anything to stop Trump, including acting like complete lunatics while the country is facing something that should be concerning to all of us, that should be unifying for us. Cannot withstand 2 terms of Trump, trying to raise the stakes even more than we've already seen them. Pelosi and others have called the president a clear and present danger. They have said that he wants foreign interference in our elections. They have, in the case of Adam Schiff, flat out said that they have seen evidence that the president of the United States is a traitor to his country. They've run out of exaggerations. There is no level of hyperbole that is beyond their ability that has been beyond their ability to reach so far. They've already gone there, right? They've fired the bazooka, so to speak. They got nothing else. Now they're just trying to resurrect the old narratives about how he's an existential threat and just try to have the propaganda seep a little deeper, not into the minds of the left. They've already become Trump deranged, but maybe some independents say, yeah, I just want it to be Biden because, it seems like it would be a little bit more of a return to normalcy. This is what the main pitch is. This is where we have to now watch as the media shifts to, oh no, Biden is just going to be Obama term 3. That was really what we were going for all along here. And they're going to hope that you forget that in one of the early Democrat debates, 10 candidates out of 10 on stage, there were about 20, I think, that were in the race overall at the time, raised their hands when they were asked whether or not they would give free health care to illegal aliens who arrived in the United States. And I'm a little bit surprised, and I know I keep drifting into the coronavirus topic here, but it obviously is very important right now in the news cycle, including in the political side of things. I'm a little bit surprised the administration hasn't capitalized more on securing our borders and the need to secure our borders as a national security concern. This is real, okay? European countries, places like Italy, ground zero for coronavirus in Europe right now, they're telling people you can't travel. You'll be within your own country. You'll be fined or imprisoned in order to enforce this quarantine. We're talking about international boundaries here, folks. And the Trump administration hasn't really made the case. And I'm surprised. I think it's a big miss, honestly. Maybe they should have Buck as White House communications director. I would crush it, by the way. But, they'd rather have the mooch. Hey, the mooch. So, I'm just kidding. I couldn't take that job. It'd be a big pay cut. So, here's the problem that I see right now with the Trump administration and trying to fight against the narratives that the media is mounting on behalf of Joe Biden. We've been preparing for a socialist candidate, and now we're going to have to watch as the media gaslights us. All that left-wing, super crazy stuff, all the AOC, let's give health care to illegals, Green New Deal, no cow farts. They're just going to wash that away, push that aside, act like it never happened. And now they've just got Joe Biden, man. And he's totally normal. Don't worry about what he says. Don't worry about anything. Joe Biden, Obama's vice president. That's all it is. They are going to try to carry this guy across the finish line. No matter what he says, no matter what he does, no matter what comes up about him, doesn't matter. They are unified in this effort now. You're going to see this because Bernie Sanders is not going to win Michigan today. He's not going to win. There's a handful of states that are in play. It's like Mississippi, Michigan, Mississippi, North Dakota, Missouri, Washington State, Idaho. So the big delegate haul comes from Michigan. Looks like you're going to have a win, unless the polls could be wrong. Who knows? You're probably going to have a win for Joe Biden, and that means that it's not realistic. I'm not saying impossible, because we've all learned, I guess Biden is going to be the candidate. I think I gave the Democrats too much credit, that they would at least find somebody that there's some reason to vote for, instead of taking essentially an aged, empty vessel that gets confused all the time and be like, yes, this person. Why? Don't worry about that. Just vote for this person, Joe Biden. You know the name. Reminds me a little bit of the movie. Not one of Eddie Murphy's best at all. It's probably Eddie Murphy top 10, but that's not saying much because after you get out of the top 5. But there was that movie, Producer Mark, you ever see it? The Distinguished Gentleman with Eddie Murphy, where no, it's a different era. Producer Mark probably doesn't. I don't even know if he's seen Eddie Murphy movies. We got a lot of work to do on the. Yeah, that's right. The Graybeard Millennial movie list for you. We got a lot of work to do.
Of course, I've seen Eddie Murphy movies.
Okay, what's the best Eddie Murphy movie?
Are you gonna get mad if I say Dr. Dolittle? Because that's the first one that I can remember off the top of my head.
I'm a little bit upset on the inside about this.
I like Daddy Daycare.
Oh my gosh, now I'm really getting upset. Not Beverly Hills Cop, not 48 Hours. You see, this is a generational thing. He's just folks.
Yeah, it's a generational.
He just doesn't know. Next he's going to tell me Smash Mouth is better than the Rolling Stones. I mean, this is a generational thing.
I would never say something like that, Buck. Come on.
Yeah, he says that now. What I was referring to, though, is The Distinguished Gentleman, a movie with Eddie Murphy. That's not a particularly good movie, but it's somewhat watchable, where he just runs as a congressman dies, I think in Florida, named Jeff Johnson, and his name is Jeffrey Johnson, and Eddie Murphy, and he's kind of a con man. So he goes, I'm just going to run for Congress as Jeff Johnson. And they go around with these megaphones, in different neighborhoods, and they're yelling, vote Jeff Johnson, the name you know. Like, that's it. That's the whole campaign. That's basically what they're going to do now with Joe Biden. Forget about all the wokeness and the stopping the cow farts and the Green New Deal and Medicare for all and all this stuff. Forget about all that. Jeff Johnson. I mean, Joe Biden, the name you know. Obama's VP. That's all you have to know. This is what it's going to be. And anybody that challenges the flimsiness of this narrative is going to be shouted down. How dare you? All of the anti-Trump rage will just come out. The only truth that you'll really see from Democrats is from some of the Bernie supporters who, they've got their own delusions, but at least they recognize that Joe Biden is a crony capitalist corporatist, empty vessel who does whatever he has to do to get reelected, has no moral or political core, and has just sort of been riding the system as long as he can and getting his relatives very wealthy off their connections to him in office. That's it. That's the whole thing. That's going to be the pitch, which is why moments like this are going to be much more common. Here's Cory Booker. Cory Booker, got all these different politicians, got to fall in line now behind Biden. Here's what he says. Play 13.
It's obvious to me that a time that darkness has descended, we need a president who is a light worker. We have had enough of a president that does demeaning. It's time that we have a president that does redeeming. Yeah. I know that this is a moral moment in America. It is a moral moment. This election is not about right or left. It's about right or wrong.
Yeah. Cory Booker always somehow sounds like he's giving a speech as part of a tryout for a high school debate team. Just reaches a little too far, a little too high. The soaring rhetoric is too much, but that's what you're going to be told. It's a moral question. Vote for Biden, the good guy. He's the good guy. He's blue-collar Joe. He's been around forever. A return to normalcy. Everything will just calm down and chill out if you vote for Joe. My friends, this is the enormous Democrat head fake that I've told you about so many times. That left-wing party, that party of of AOC and Bernie, and you look at the leading lights of the Democrat Party today and where they're going on abortion, on climate change, on redistribution of wealth, taxation, Medicare for all, free college, all these, student debt forgiveness, all these different issues. Now they're going to pretend like that hasn't been the conversation for the last year, and it's going to be this massive focus on Joe Biden's a good guy. You know Joe Biden. He's been in the game forever. He's going to return us all to normal. It's all going to be okay with Joe Biden. It's just a return to normalcy, political normalcy. Don't worry about all the crazies in his party. Don't worry about the primary you've seen with the Democrats talking about insane stuff, and the fact that about 30% of the party really wants it to be Bernie. And they're straight up socialists. Don't worry about any of that. Joe Biden, return to normal. Don't worry about the people that he'll put in the White House, the Democrat apparatus he'll put around him. Don't pay attention to any of that. He's a centrist, they say, even though in reality Joe Biden has been whatever the Democratic parties wanted him to be at any point in time. And this Democrat Party is further left than any Democrat Party in my lifetime and probably in the last 100 years, you could say. That's where we are now, folks. It's all a mirage. It's all the pretense that Biden's something that he's not. That is how they think they get this guy elected.
But to unify this nation, we first have to unify our party. And over the past week, we've gone a long way toward doing that. Mayor Pete, Senator Klobuchar, Beto O'Rourke, Senator Booker, Senator Harris, Mayor Bloomberg, they have done something that I think the press is perplexed with as much as I am, that they've all come out and endorsed at one time.
Yeah, he's perplexed, folks. Why would all these candidates come out and endorse Joe Biden at once? What a coincidence. Huh. It's not like anybody was making phone calls from the DNC and there were no backroom deals going on. No. It's just all such a shock. Joe Biden can't figure it out. The media is perplexed too. Or like we're all supposed to play along with this game like it wasn't the establishment calling the Democrats to heel. Hey, this is what you're going to do. We can't have Crazy Bernie because Crazy Bernie's too honest about what he wants to do as a Democrat to this country. Joe Biden will lie to people and then do the stuff that Crazy Bernie wants to do. He'll just call it something else and he'll do it slower. That's what's going on right now.
This election is a very important election. In my view, civilization as we know it is at stake. It's about everything. It's about America. We ask God to bless America. What is America? America is our Constitution. America is our Constitution with the genius of a separation of powers, Bill of Rights, a republic if you can keep it, Benjamin Franklin. All of the Bill of Rights and all that contains, and that is under siege. It is, I think there's a disloyalty to the Constitution.
Yes, a republic if you keep it, Benjamin Franklin, and, I cannot tell a lie, George Washington and the cherry tree. And
why is it that Nancy Pelosi sounds like a fourth grader who just got out of a basic civics lesson when she talks about America?
The genius of the founders and, the Constitution.
And I mean this. If you ask Nancy Pelosi, who is as a public figure, third in line for the presidency, that is a fact. She's third in line for the presidency. I know a lot of you are like, that would never happen, but okay, that is the truth, though. As a public figure who's the single most powerful Democrat in elected office right now, if you were to, on the spot, ask Nancy Pelosi to, not word for word, but just tell what the first 5 amendments to the Bill of Rights, the first 10 amendments to the Constitution, what those are about, I would bet a large sum of money that she wouldn't get more than 3 of them. And yet she's giving you constitutional lectures here or trying to appeal to your sense of respect for the Constitution as a reason to vote against Donald Trump for re-election. Again, notice the lack of specifics. How is there a lack of or how is there an absence of fidelity to the Constitution from President Trump? What has he done that's unconstitutional? Every time they say he does something unconstitutional, it's usually something that has gone to court, and then usually the courts say, no, he's right. what is the unconstitutional act? Making fun of the press? I think that our elite media really does believe, and they're not actually elite, they're just elitists. They think of themselves as elite. But the elite media institutions really believe that they should be insulated from criticism by politicians because they're so used to being able to pile on one side and have Republicans of the Romney school be like, oh, I don't want to be mean. Okay, sure. Just tell everybody that I'm like a wife beater and a horrible human being who gives people cancer for no reason, and that's fine. Whatever it is. We're just supposed to keep getting punched in the face by the journalists and by the Democratic establishment. And anybody who fights back against that, you're destroying the Constitution. These people don't even know what the Constitution says. They couldn't even begin to have a real discussion about constitutional limits. And whenever they feel like it, they say the Constitution is an old document written by racist white men and shouldn't really be binding on our polity today. But then a week later, they'll be like,
the founding fathers, Benjamin Franklin, Alexander Hamilton, like Hamilton, the musical, that guy and stuff. And
he has no idea what she's talking about. But she says it could be the end of civilization as we know it. How can anyone take this person, Nancy Pelosi, seriously? The end of civilization? The country isn't just it isn't like falling into anarchy and the destruction of civilization. The first 3 years of the Trump presidency were 3 of the most prosperous, most peaceful, most happy years of my lifetime. I mean, you really would have to go back to the golden era, the golden years of the Reagan administration to have anything similar. I mean, we go back to the last Republican president we had, George W. Bush, and pretty much right away we were in the midst of the war on terror and 9/11 and a huge recession and big problems. And some very bad decisions made by that Bush administration, notably the war in Iraq. But there's nothing comparable under the Bush administration. And I was working at the CIA at the time. I spent years on the Iraq desk, and particularly in the end of Bush's first and into his second term. And there was no feeling of brighter, sunnier days than what we've had under Trump. So it's just delusional. I mean, Pelosi is feeding into a delusion here that the country's doing so poorly and everything's so bad. Yeah, we've got a coronavirus situation that we need to handle. I do believe that Trump is trying to handle it and is doing so far. It's not perfect. I do wish he would stay on message more when he was at the CDC and he was giving the American people a window into how the experts are talking about this issue and how they're handling it. And I don't like that he gets off message and starts making fun of the press and stuff there, because then they'll just attack that, which takes the focus off of the very good work that he's doing to coordinate the response from CDC and NIH. But we're going to get through this. It's going to be okay. And it's not going to be the end of civilization as we know it if Donald Trump wins again. It could be the end of America as we know it if Bernie Sanders were to win. And Joe Biden wouldn't be that much better. I'm not going to be disingenuous with you. I think Joe Biden is a better choice for America than Bernie Sanders. I'd rather have Joe Biden in office, mostly because Biden is an open corporatist. I mean, you can buy Biden off. So at least we know that he's a fan of markets insofar as markets can line his or his family members' pockets. He's not going to completely destroy that. Bernie Sanders, you got to wonder what this guy really thinks is good. I think that Bernie Sanders would look people in the eye if he became president and if his policies were instituted and it resulted in massive destruction of wealth in this country. I do believe that Bernie Sanders would look people in the eye and say, but we're more equal, aren't we? And as if there's no problem. If we had a stagnant economy, 0 to negative GDP growth, went into a solid recession, called the Bernie recession, if he became president, and you would have a huge flight of capital out of markets because everyone would know that Bernie Sanders, a modest Wall Street tax. It's not a modest tax. You start looking at these things, they really would eat away at investment. But Bernie Sanders would still tell you that was okay. He wouldn't even lie about what's going on. He'd say, yeah, it's good. So what if everybody's got a tougher time paying their bills and, everything is more expensive and the market is functioning less efficiently? We're all suffering together. That's really a Marxist rallying cry. Make the state make everyone suffer more together, because that's the true unity. That's the true equality. And we'll talk more about Bernie and socialism in just a moment, but that's really the goal here. The goal is not to make everybody better off and happier, and because everyone knows that's not going to happen. There are always going to be people who make bad choices. There are always going to be people who are lazy. There are people who are dumb. There are people who can't actually get their act together. And they love having a politician who will come forward and say, nothing that's happened to you in your life is your fault. None of your frustrations are the result of your own decisions or your parents' decisions. None of that is the case. It's all the big fat cats who are holding you down. This is the politics of envy, incredibly powerful for as long as human beings have gathered together in groups. The politics of envy works, unfortunately, but it's destructive. It's not additive. That's what Bernie Sanders excels in. Joe Biden, kind of pretends to be a little something else. There's a little bit of class warfare, but also, we got to kind of recognize that really all the Silicon Valley barons and all the top echelon of Wall Street now, these are all Democrats. So we got to keep them happy. They're super rich, and they write big checks for fundraisers and stuff. So Biden's got a little bit of a different view of this. Wouldn't be much better, but certainly would be not as immediately catastrophic. Bernie, by the way, given the realities of the coronavirus situation right now, he wants everyone to know that you would have paid medical leave in his system. Here's a perfect example of this. Play 9.
At a time when half of the people in this country live paycheck to paycheck, and when people go to work every single day, even when they are sick, because they need an income to take care of their families, the United States remains the only major country on earth not to guarantee paid sick leave and paid family leave. Now, that is absurd in a general sense, but it is particularly dangerous given the moment we are at right now. And that means that today there are people who are going to work who may well have symptoms of the coronavirus or other illnesses. And in the midst of this crisis, when we do not want people going to work who are sick, who may have the coronavirus, we must guarantee that all people who do not go to work or self-quarantine themselves because they think they may have the virus receive a paycheck to keep their families and their own lives going. Not a radical idea.
It's a great idea, Bernie, right? It sounds good. I get that. It sounds good. Right. We don't want coronavirus to spread. There is pressure on people to go in and look. I mean, I can't even tell you how many times I've done radio or whatever my media obligations are when I'm sick as a dog. I mean, in really bad shape, but you got to keep fighting for the Freedom Hut. But I will, producer Mark, I don't want him to freak out. If I thought I had coronavirus, I would stay home and self-quarantine and get tested. And I think that the powers that be here would accept that. But, okay, sounds great what Bernie says. How much sick leave should you get? How much sick leave should you get? I mean, he's telling us we need sick leave. Okay, how much? Do you stay? Is it just for this period of? What about when coronavirus makes a comeback in the fall? So it's going to just be sick leave then you have going forward. Well, how much is enough? You might have to 14-day self-quarantine. Does everyone get 14 days added of sick leave? Do you know what that would do to businesses? If all of a sudden people could just take off what would be over 2 weeks of sick leave, and that was mandatory? How are you going to adjudicate this? Are you going to make it illegal? If you fire somebody because you think they're abusing sick leave, which can be a fireable offense, depending on the circumstances, how are you going to know? They're just trying to, they had a little bit of a cough and they don't want coronavirus. They don't want people to get coronavirus. Now, maybe there is some policy that needs to be implemented. Maybe we do have to come up with something. But once again, you have Bernie Sanders, nothing on the details. We're going to pay people to not go to work because they're on sick leave and they get to be good people because they're not exposing us to coronavirus. Does anyone think that's not going to be massively abused by people across the country? I mean, on the one hand, you already have individuals who test positive for coronavirus and then go to a school dance or go to a work meeting or whatever. So people are reckless morons in general. There are plenty of them out there. But now you're going to mandate from the government that there's paid sick leave at a time when everyone's paranoid and freaked out about this. And you should be paid for the days you're not working. How many people want a paid vacation for 2 weeks? Especially if it means you're not going to have to. I mean, I'm on the subway 4 times a day. I am just grinding it out here, hoping that I'm not going to get anyone coughing in my face. So I'm in that sense, a high risk transmission category just because I'm riding the subway all the time. Would it be nice to be able to take 2 weeks off? Bruce and Mark and I can sit around drinking Mai Tais and hanging out? Sure. But what would that do to the show? What would happen to our sponsors and to our audience? People depend on the show for current events and for their daily news deep dive. What happens to all that? I mean, you can either leave this up to employers in the market and individuals to figure out, or you can have a one-size-fits-all government policy that's going to have enormous ramifications and unintended consequences for businesses. That's going to happen if you do this. So it's really easy to be like, everybody should be able to stay home and get paid. Okay, how much? How long? What's fair? Look, I mean, if Bernie wants my vote, you know what he really needs to go for? We should have a 4-day work week. We should not work on Fridays. We could change that right now. We could change the world. We could change civilization. Most people are wasting like 80% of the time they're in the office just trying not to work anyway. If we condensed it to 4 days, this is a total non sequitur. Well, not non sequitur, but an extension of what we're just talking about. Everybody would work so much harder. Who wouldn't work harder and get more done if it meant they could have Friday off every week? I'm just saying, 4-day work week. Any president who could get that done would probably have my vote. That would have to be a transformation, though. You couldn't just have government mandate that, because some places would keep working they'd keep people working for 5 days. So we'd have to all agree that this is the way. And to those who say it's crazy, why do we only have 2 days a week off? Got to draw the line somewhere. I say we should have 3 off.
You got millions of people in this country today who may feel that they have a symptom, but you know what? They cannot afford to go to a doctor. And then they're going to go to work. We have a president of the United States, doesn't matter, go to work. We have a president who says absurd things.
The president hasn't told people who have coronavirus to go to work. The amount of misinformation that's out there about Trump right now, because it's a sensitive time and it's easy to capitalize on misinformation for the purposes of attacking this president, it's mind-boggling what's going on. It really is. Bernie's saying that people don't have health care, so they won't go to the doctor. I always want to start asking, okay, at this point, with massive Medicaid expansion in all these states, and with people now able to buy in the individual market these subsidized Obamacare plans, and who are we really focusing on here as not able to go to see a doctor at all if they think they have coronavirus? I would just like to know what categorization, what percentage of people really fall into not covered by Medicaid, not able to get an individual insurance plan, not able to get a work insurance plan. Where Bernie Sanders is talking about it like this is common. This is one of the big myths that the people that want a government takeover of healthcare always tell you, is that it's like you make it sound like nobody's got healthcare. 90% of the country plus has healthcare coverage right now. 90% plus. And if you look at the rest of the percentages that aren't covered in that, they're either in some crack in between being covered by Medicaid and being able to afford the individual market even with the subsidies. You get into who is not individual, or rather pre-existing conditions can't block you. So we're always so focused on the people that can't go to the doctor because they don't have insurance. Okay, who are they and what's going on? Can we get into the specifics here? Because we spend all this money on Medicaid, all this money on government programs to make sure that everybody who is in this country, legally and illegally, has health care. So where is this falling down? Now, see, this is where one of the big myths is that we could cover. You could just say that Medicaid is now something that everybody has in every state all across. The problem is that people realize Medicaid is not very good insurance. They're trying to shoehorn Medicaid into the existing healthcare system, and what everyone finds out is that doctors don't want to take it. The reimbursement rates are way too low. It's a government program, so there's this mandate of how much you'll get paid for any kind of service. And so there's a shortage of doctors. There's a shortage of care. So you can give more and more people Medicaid. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be more able to see doctors. But Bernie doesn't operate in the real world. He operates in the world of rhetoric. He operates in the world of make-believe. So when he says that people aren't going to go to the doctor, or rather people are going to go to work even if they think they have coronavirus because Trump says so, that's just a smear. And also, who are these individuals who are not going to go to an emergency room where they have to be treated if they think they have coronavirus? That's a very unwise decision that any individual would be making when they know they are mandated to be treated if they go into an emergency room. So I just think Bernie Sanders, he gets away with saying stuff all the time. He did this town hall at Fox yesterday. They did a good job in the town hall, but no one ever gets Bernie pinned down on any topic. It's always just rhetoric.